We wholesale to other investor clients, which means we get the properties under contract. We do like all the marketing, all the legwork, all the analysis, but instead of me taking it down and making the margin, I sell it to a client. We make a smaller margin, essentially a commission for off-market deals. And then ideally, we then list those properties for the clients on the back end. We also have a background, which I know we'll dive into later in the episode, but with institutional clients. So Wall Street buying single family rentals, the BlackRocks of the world, the Starwoods of the world. And so we did a couple hundred of those transactions over the last 3 or 4 years. So I kind of blend Wall Street with that. And then we have an education division, and we've got a cool thing called the Elevation Academy. So we teach people how to flip. And then, I know we had Eli, you as a guest on Raising the Flipping Bar podcast earlier. So all these different things. I guess long-winded answer of doing why I'm doing what I'm doing is I actually still love to teach and train and consult people. So our kind of mantra is to build full circle value and create wealth for people. But wealth doesn't always have to be financial. It's educational. It's kind of holistic education. It's obviously financial, but it's just helping people with their financial journey through real estate.
Yeah. I'm curious, like, were the 15 apartments you started out with in your like real estate journey, were they a lot of like fixer uppers, like a lot of work, or like pretty much turnkey and good to go from the start?
Yeah, good question. We lucked out, and I think that was the thing that probably freaked out my wife the most. Is she's like, at home, you're slow fixing stuff up, you're mediocre craftsmanship, and we could get in some squabbles. And I was like, don't worry, I'm doing none of the work. So I had to, I had to buy these properties as turnkey rentals. So for the most part, they were pretty done.
Nice.
But then when I got into flipping, I had to learn how to do it the right way.
Is that common that they're done, or like are they usually like need some work?
They usually need work.
Okay.
Normally you're getting a better deal if they're crappy and beat up and need work. You're going to kind of pay a premium if it's pretty and fancy and done. So most of them are fixer-uppers.
Okay.
Usually. So these weren't super nice, but they would be kind of a classically nice A- type of property from a rental perspective. So they're not your super nice A stuff. They're not total crap holes, but they're kind of just nice urban, workforce housing.
Mm-hmm. And you guys also facilitate the meetup community as well, right? Can you speak a little bit about that and how it ties to the podcast, the academy?
Yeah, so we've kind of really gone deep into creating a meetup in 2 forums. One is that something is we're here obviously recording at our collective workspace called the Broadway Collective. So we've got this great footprint where we can host these meetups. So we have meetups monthly. It's the Building Wealth Through Real Estate meetup, sponsored by Elevation. And so we've got stuff going on here at the property, and we'll cater towards entrepreneurs, business owners, real estate investors, real estate agents, contractors, kind of anybody in this big sphere of real estate. And then one that we also do that I love is called Fix and Flip Live. So we'll teach people live on site and have meetups at our flips. So I think there's a lot of like quote unquote gurus out there that they know it all, but it's like, it's stuff from 5 years ago, or it's stuff from a different market. And it's like, that just doesn't jive. So we'll tell people, here's the good stuff we're doing. Here's something that we never thought we'd see. Here's, be careful of doing this. Like we're nitty gritty of like doing stuff, meetups on site and here at the building.
Yeah. What I like about it is it is that holistic approach, right? And I mean, there's been open houses here at Broadway Collective where I'm like, hey, what brought you in today? And they're like, oh, I saw Derek's podcast, or I attended a training and now I'm interested in space. And, so it makes sense and it's working for you all. I mean, that's happened to me 3 or 4 times at these public meetups where it's not a tenant here with us, but they are aware of the brand, they like the academy, and it makes sense as a whole ecosystem. And I like that you don't describe it just as a funnel.
Yeah.
Right. And that's super important. And I think it matches the ethos and
the
way that we approach work.
The spirit of a funnel, like it's trickling down to our own success. Cause I think since we have Derek here is like this podcast space has been great for us launching our podcast. So
cool.
Everybody says they like it.
Yeah, they love the
cool
background.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. We're getting a lot of good feedback when we record. And
love it.
Yeah. So we're always telling people, come book it.
Yeah.
This is available to book and use.
Cool.
We've really been appreciating it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, totally. I have a random question.
Yeah.
So I know like you're training all these people to kind of do the flips and stuff.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's just like something that you're passionate about.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that my question is like, what is like the scariest thing you had to deal with kind of coming into this industry? Or like, it feels like you started in 2009. Like it must have been scary.
Yeah.
I know thousands.
Yes.
And then so I was wondering, like, what do you tell people to look out for? Or what do you find that people struggle with kind of getting started?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I think it's funny you say that. Yeah, I didn't know enough to be as scared as I should have been in 2009, honestly. I think people are, they're, oh, in the hell did you do that? And I was lucky, and I always want to like give gratitude to still had a very good corporate job, and still had like insurance and benefits and stuff like that. So I know we're in such a culture now of like entrepreneurship right out of the gate and grind. And it's like, there's nothing wrong with a good corporate job while, like learn along the way. And so I didn't know what I didn't know at that point, but then fast forward to telling people what to be careful of. I think it's just, nobody can see them perfectly, but it's trying to see, like, read the tea leaves and if you can, be careful of really big market shifts. And so in the middle of 2022, I was lucky in that we were working with this hedge fund. We had done like almost 300 transactions with them in 18 months. And it was crazy. It was drinking from a fire hose with like 3 people. But then they started kicking the can down the road, and interest rates slowly started going up. And they're like, we're going to pump the brakes. And I knew something was coming when they said, kind of background of how a real estate transaction works. When you put something under contract, you put down earnest money in an escrow deposit, meaning you're going to put down, in our market, $3,000 to $10,000 to say, we're going under contract, we're putting a financial commitment down. If I screw you and walk away, at least the seller gets something. They had around $100,000 of earnest money across about 17 properties, and they had missed their deadlines to get that money back. And they're like, peace out, just give it back to the sellers. It's like when a hedge fund walks away from that, I'm like, okay, something's going down. So that was nerve-wracking. We got into one really expensive flip. Like, we've done really well doing one flip a year that ended up selling for over $1 million. Most of our sweet spot is stuff that's kind of, take the median home price in Denver, which right now is around $575. We put about, on average, $100,000 to $150,000 in rehab into it.
Yeah.
And we sell it for $750 to $850. And it generates, your average return of anywhere from $50,000 to $75,000 of net profit.
Over what period of time, like per deal?
Per deal,
60 days?
Yeah, that's a good question. Like, our average deal, I'll give you, that was like the description of, like, we're sports guys in here. So like, that's a double. From a time frame perspective, that's 2 to 3 months of construction and then 1 month to sell it. So
cool.
2 to 4 months total from
quarter.
Like day you buy it. Yeah. So like per quarter, roughly. And then I just got my ass handed to me on one deal in Sloan's Lake, which is a cool part of town. It was only 4 homes off the lake. It had a lake view out of one window, a mountain view out of the other. And we thought we were conservative enough, and we just got stuck with the city making us take 5 more months to permit it, and the price swinging down $100,000. So I lost 6 figures on that deal. And that definitely was a freak out moment. So it depends on what market cycle you're in, but that was like what we try to teach people is like, every deal is not going to be amazing, and you got to be prepared for that.
Right. Yeah. Some part of that has to do with like what's in your control, right, and what's outside of your control.
Yeah.
And kind of being able to navigate. Okay, I can't control the city.
No.
Regulation.
Or I can't control the broader market.
Yep.
But what's the domain that I'm good at? And something I recall from our podcast together is thinking about how to know kind of what your superpowers are. How do you use AI?
Yeah.
And so kind of harking back to the podcast that we did together, just a quick plug
Sure.
for that episode. What's something that was really memorable from that discussion, or anything that you want to share about that episode? And we'll link to the show notes.
No, totally. I appreciate that. I think it was really cool hearing your perspective and you guys being so highly advanced in the AI and consulting world compared to like us folks in real estate. I think we're totally behind the 8 ball, but how, to me, it was such a technological and analytical way to look at AI. But you guys, and in our episode, Eli, you guys talked about creativity. And I thought that's a cool thing that I wasn't prepared for. I didn't think about. And off camera, we talked a little bit about like, I'm not the most creative person. So it's not like I'm on using AI to help me make art.
Yeah.
But it can. And like, that was mind blowing to me. It's just more like, oh, how can we pull fast comps, or how can we analyze data quicker? It's like, no, that's not all of it, So that was really a big takeaway for me, is the creativity aspect. And you guys are so thoughtful about that.
So I will say, I just watched the Super Bowl with these two guys, and it was so annoying. With every commercial, it was them to just be like,
That's AI.
that's AI.
Yeah.
That's AI.
Okay, I wish I would have done that.
That's AI.
Yeah.
Should have made it to
Like the guys who has like the hats made of skin. That was the weirdest thing I've ever seen.
That was creepy.
The seal on a seal.
I don't know. I like that one. Eli was like, "What is that?" I'm like, "A seal on a seal."
Seal on a seal. I think, but to your point though about pulling fast comps, data ingestion. When I think about working with these two guys who are much more technically, adept, and they apply creative solutions to those types of problems. And I think that creativity can manifest in many, many different ways, right?
Yeah.
Using AI to make marketing material as a real estate agent, which I know is a big thing, right? They have to use Canva. They have to put social media content out, right? Be present in their communities, branded giveaways at Halloween, Christmas parties. I mean, creative production in individual real estate is huge.
Yeah.
And it's a big business for Canva,
Yeah.
particularly
Huge,
right now. It's like a major demographic of their customer profile are teachers making content for schools and real estate agents making content for their marketing, which is really interesting.
Yeah. And then a follow-up is like, I was going to ask if when you look for new properties, if you mainly use word of mouth or like apps, because I wonder if like Zillow has AI or anything in it.
That's a good question. It's funny. That's another thing we were talking about on our joint episode on Raising the Flipping Bar is I feel like our big institutions in the real estate business are so far behind and they should be leading the charge. So like the Zillows of the world, the realtor.coms, talk about Super Bowl ads, that homes.com ad, they're huge. They own LoopNet, which is a huge commercial, real estate platform. So like, I feel like they should be leading, and maybe they are, of course, probably behind the scenes, but it's not trickling down to the individual real estate investor, the agent. Like it's a funky thing. So we're in this weird, I want to call it purgatory of like it's like a bunch of dumb real estate people who are behind the times anyways. And I'm talking about myself, not other people, but like we're trying to fumble through individual tools when those tools should be like
providing features. Yeah, exactly.
Do you guys recall seeing though that like Zillow got their ass handed to them?
They did
on the automated market assessments.
They got more than their ass handed to them.
Well, then
billions of dollars.
Yeah, yes. Wasn't it that scandal where Zillow was like
that was a time in 2020.
No, you're right.
Yeah,
it was crazy. That's true. They did. They really overswung what they were looking for. That and then Open Door is another huge real estate.
What's Open Door?
So their model was, I think probably use data, try to buy homes that fit it's in our world, it's called the buy box, like your investment guideline, that fit it from a numeric perspective. But here's the thing, and maybe this is like a good segue into what we'll talk about is, okay, use AI to aggregate data and say, okay, if it's this many square feet and it's this price, this is a quote unquote good buy. But what they didn't factor in, they didn't have people in the homes many times, is yes, there was square footage, but it was the most jacked up layout. And there were two levels, and it was because somebody illegally finished a garage and got you 400 extra square feet, but it wasn't a classic 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom house. And so then they went in and did super crappy lipstick rehab. Meaning carpet paint and mismatched fixtures and finishes, and then used the back end, what we call ARV or the after repair value, to price it, and they got destroyed. And they thought, they made a little bit of margin because they looked at it as a fee, or they would make real estate commissions, or they would make transaction commissions, or any construction management fees. But the profit for the deal just wasn't there. And to your point, Keith, like, they got destroyed, Zillow got destroyed. So it's a funky thing. Like, we need to use these tools, but these are big players that got ham.
You know what I'm reminded of is the kind of classic example in AI applied to like image classification.
Yeah.
And there's like a really traditional example of if you ask AI to identify the difference between a cat and a dog, humans really good at that.
Yep.
We obviously look at an animal and we're like, that's a dog. But if you were to describe to a computer or some kind of parametric system, look for, 2 pointy ears, look for a snout, look for sharp teeth, canines,
they both have the same.
Look for fur, look for 4 legs, look for a long tail. You're never actually going to give a requisite amount of detail because there's a lot of fuzzy logic that happens in our brains when we look at something and determine the difference between a cat and a dog. And now AI is getting really good at that. And actually now with the way that these systems are progressing, AI is really great at that fuzzy logic in many circumstances or situations, right? So what I'm really interested to dig deeper in on this topic is that kind of problem when we think about, okay, why did Zillow, Open Door, and these companies doing like Zestimates and, trying to analyze the market and do these mass purchasing kind of schemes or strategies, why are they failing when you think about them being a set of parameters that might indicate a buy?
I mean,
when it still requires like that intuition or that fuzzy logic to say this is a good layout. So I'm curious.
I would probably say or my interpretation is
No, go for it.
I forget my thought. 'Cause I think it was two things. I think the most obvious one, it was just like one of the more fun side effects of the zero interest rate environment. I mean, that was crazy.
People are over their skis.
Everyone just had way too much money was going into companies. It was insane.
Yeah.
Like they had just enough. They literally could have lost $1 billion and they got away with it. That's crazy.
Right. And they're still in business.
Still thriving.
Yeah. And then I think the second thing is just like almost like hubris around the data they collected.
Yeah,
like I feel as if like there could even be like they probably didn't put as much thought into like local data sources and even boots on the ground and kind of like the
probably so.
like the local part of real estate, the part that's like
Yeah. No, I think that's it.
I just think from like an ethics perspective of protecting the consumer and also like making Zillow more successful. AI is so good at like, you'll see these like real estate advertisements for like cheaper places. They'll use like the fisheye lenses to make like the room look bigger. And like you said, like just do carpet renovation and stuff that is kind of putting lipstick on a pig that you can't tell. And you could totally use AI to like validate whether it's a good apartment or not. And like they can use algorithms to like find if a fisheye lens was used, stuff like that. So, and I think that they weren't collecting the right data, and it was oversight of how much data they had, and the things that they can do with AI, they probably weren't even on their radar.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. Like they basically had enough data that they probably ran simulations on it over and over and over again and just kept coming up good. But that means their data just wasn't.
Their data wasn't
What was
there.
actually happening.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really interesting. And so like now with the ability to augment reasoning with multimodal models, because all of this happened pre-LLM.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, this had to be pre.
It had to be.
So yeah, they didn't even have that available at the point.
Right.
That's a good point.
So they're running conventional real estate models that the hedge fund is producing that meet these criteria that now, if they were to re-enter that kind of mass home buying market as Zillow, I don't necessarily know if I volunteer to, or like would recommend it because I would love to buy a house someday that's not extremely overvalued.
Yes. Yep.
Or just completely dominated by the institutional market.
Yep.
Like where the house across our, us or across the street from us just got bought by some big box brand when a sign never went up.
Yep.
Never hit the market.
Dang.
They came in, fixed it up, family, moved out. And now there's renters looking at it. And you never even knew that property hit the market.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And like, I think that's problematic for, millennial home buyers looking to try to build some generational wealth.
Yeah.
So that being said, if Zillow were to re-enter this space or other players looking to use AI to make a similar play, I think image data is now able to be leveraged in completely new ways in these comps.
Look at the layouts of the house.
Right? Floor plans might be able to be used by these multimodal
Like a robot straight up.
Yeah.
right?
Like a scenario around Denver.
Sure.
Oh,
Absolutely. I mean, we've got the Google cars driving around doing the mapping. So why not,
exactly.
send somebody into the house?
Yeah. What else? What other data should like in that multimodal lens? Like if we have image information, video from the collection.
Yeah.
What other?
I'm stuck thinking about every time Keith used Google Maps, he drops in on a canoe somehow, and like he's always on a boat. I don't know how he does it.
That's
It's a spot with boats are.
That's awesome. So, kind of getting at the BlackRocks of the
Yeah.
world, the hedge funds of the world. Let's get into a little bit of that difference between, say, like residential retail investor versus, say, the Wall Streets that are now entering this space.
Yeah.
I learned from you that these institutions are buying up more individual single-family properties in bulk than ever before.
Mhm.
Tell us a little bit about that dynamic, and maybe for listeners, viewers
Sure.
that don't know about that's a relatively new evolution of these markets, right?
And yeah, it is a new evolution. I feel like it started in 2000. Well, it really came out of the housing crash, and it's a double-edged sword. To your point, like we need affordability to be good, but they were also the backstop that stopped the massive housing crash of 2008, 9, and 10. They were the ones that looked at it and said, okay, these numbers are almost fail safe, where if we buy this and hold it for at least 5 years, there's no way we're going to lose money, and created an industry because there was so much foreclosure and everybody that had a pulse got a loan and got 5 mortgages.
Yeah.
So they kind of bailed us out, in my opinion, to some degree through like 2010 through 2014. And then the industry really started to kick up in 2014, where Wall Street money would come in and buy single family rentals. They really weren't interested in buying condos. They weren't, I mean, there's the big REITs, real estate investment trusts, that are buying large apartment buildings and A-class office space and things like that. So it was a different kind of asset class. So they could just buy all this stuff and hold on to it for a long time. And so that's where kind of the industry pivoted a little bit, when we call either individual or retail buyers, people like us, people buying, a home. And then what might be helpful is the classification. Institutional or hedge fund or Wall Street money is usually people that own 1,000 or more homes. But ironically, that is only about a 2% amount of the actual housing inventory in the country. So it's a good, like, sexy headline to say, like, oh, Wall Street's buying everything. They're not really buying everything, even though they're buying lots. It's still,
it's just that many.
Percentage, it's not crazy. But when you say, oh, they own 1,000 homes, that's a crap load of homes.
What's the relative like concentration in that 2% though, across like the BlackRocks and the, you know what I'm saying? Like, how many of those companies though are controlling?
Yeah, good point. So totally fact check me on this, but I would say there's probably 10 to 12 institutions that are the major players owning all of these homes.
Yeah.
And then that next kind of group up is essentially 100 homes to 999 homes. And those are called quote unquote large investors.
Okay.
And so those could be private equity. Those could be a really high net worth individual. That could be pooling funds. REITs could own that much. And then ironically, 100 or I guess 99 or less are called quote unquote mom and pop investors. So even if you
own 90 homes,
you own 90 homes, you're a quote. I mean, I would freaking love to own myself right now. Yeah, you're the quote unquote mom and pop, but you're you're probably top 2% net worth. Yeah, just kind of total extrapolation of these numbers.
Sure.
So if we add all those 3 buckets together, rental or rental properties are owned by about 24% of the overall housing market are owned by those 3 buckets of people together. So it's a little like catch-22 in that it helped bail us out. It redefined an industry. It's now truly its own asset class, just apartments were, self-storage or whatever else. But it's a little funky way to slice that.
But it seems like not big enough number that like renting's going to take over and then home buying is going to go away. I don't know. That's what I've been hearing.
This is like a number I'm going to just make up, but I feel like this is probably
This is the best.
Mom and pop. The mom and pop ones are probably the largest class of billionaires, or millionaires, not billionaires.
Oh, totally.
Very specifically, like that's probably the largest class of millionaires in the U.S. I would imagine.
I would totally agree. I have seen stats out there that say that 90% of millionaires either made it because of real estate or have real estate as a big piece of their puzzle.
Yeah.
Hands down, because you can use leverage. Like, you can leverage in the stock market, you can trade on margin and stuff like that. But people are very okay with just a classic mortgage for a rental property.
Yeah.
It's straightforward. It's fixed 30-year debt. Like, it makes perfect sense. So I think you're
people have been buying that for 200 years plus in the existing formats. So that's interesting.
Yep.
That makes sense.
Yep. Correct.
So let's talk a little bit about going up the ladder. What is the difference between the problems for the mom and pops of the world and as you scale up to owning, let's say, 1,000 plus homes?
Yeah.
If you're owning, managing, selling, flipping a portfolio that's 1,000 plus, what are the distinct differences in the way that those types of businesses may be operating? Tool sets, processes. Tell us a little bit about those distinctions.
Yeah, I mean, I think that just from my personal experience, when I hit 15, kind of our role, we call them doors, whether it's a single family home, a duplex, a fourplex, whatever. When I hit 15 doors, I ran out of personal time. So I then had to hire a property manager, and that manager managed all the day-to-day of rentals, whether it's the toilet breaking, whether it's collecting rent, whether it's re-renting it, whatever.
Dog tore something up.
Exactly. You got to have a property manager do that. And they're a huge key piece of the puzzle. I think that's honestly one of the subsets of real estate that's probably the furthest behind is integrating technology and especially AI into the property management component of it. So I think that's a big piece of the puzzle. And then I think once you get to probably 50 or 100 units or more, you're really talking about a business.
Yeah.
You know, it could be a laundromat, it could be a consulting business, it could be a restaurant, but like you have staff, you have multiple layers of management, you have to run a really good business, and it just happens to be in real estate. And then if you go way up the food chain, yeah, you start talking about multiple layers of service providers that are managing, you know, there's a property manager that's managing thousands of units. There's probably accounting companies that are doing the accounting and the books on all those things. You've got classification of people called asset managers. Those are the people that manage the asset, obviously, but they look at it. Where do we buy? When do we sell? When does it make sense to dump renovation money into this versus, you know, sell the property on the market? So yeah, it gets kind of complex really quickly, even though it's to the quote unquote mom and pop up to 100 homes.
Now, the one concession that I'll make for these institutional organizations that may own 55,000 plus homes. This is just a personal anecdote. Our rental, right, it was previously owned by Pathlight. Pathlight owns 55,000 properties across the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
Signed a lease, you know, or visited, found the listing, checked it out, signed a lease, never interacted with a human.
Yeah.
It was phenomenal.
Yeah.
It was great. Self-tour.
Yeah.
Hey, we're good to go. Put down a deposit. The experience was actually very pleasant compared to the mom and pop on Craigslist that had a good rental, interesting property, but I'm like, I don't want to rent from those folks.
Yeah.
Right. And so if they had never met me, I actually might have bought, you know, or gotten that rental.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, Pathlight just recently sold our home to Tricon Residential, which is another large property holder. They're slightly smaller. I don't even want to venture their total count because I couldn't find it.
It's big.
In that instance, you know, we were told, hey, your property is changing management and ownership. No worries. You're handled. Here's an info packet. 3 days later, we got the new application that connects to the smart home features for security, control the AC, schedule garage door opener, those kind of things. Sign up, billing and utilities immediately moved over into the new system. It was fucking fantastic.
Yeah.
No problem.
Yep.
So when I think about the economies of scale involved, I'm actually liking what these institutions are offering us. Where in Austin, we rented from Americans Home for Rent, which also is another major property holder. I think they're at like 18,000 homes across Texas and other states, maybe more now, most likely more now. Rents stay relatively expected in terms of increases because they have scale. So I'll take a $50 rent increase instead of my previous individual landlord that came at me with a $200 rent.
Yeah.
I don't want to come across as a total critic of the institutions entering the space because I do think I'm having great experiences with them.
Right. I think that
Well said.
Isn't like the biggest question about the institutions owning it is that it takes like the wealth away from the people that own them. Is that even true? Is my question. Is that like happening, or is the rent going down enough to justify it? Or is that, or like you said, is it only 2% of the homes?
If it's 2% of the homes, that's kind of where I would lean in that argument that I don't think so. As of right now, started to see data, and I've heard an argument that we are leaning more towards a European model where home ownership is very, very low. Or let's talk about London as an example. Like you have to be a third generation person to get grandma and grandpa's house to afford a $3 million flat that's probably pretty shitty anyways.
Right.
So I don't think we're anywhere there, and I don't think we're swinging there. But it's also an administrative thing too. So like if you think about it from the Bush administration, his whole mantra was everybody should be a homeowner.
Yeah.
Well, I could argue that maybe that was part of the reason why everybody got a mortgage and everybody had a house. And then you swing back to like crazy subsidies and driving up inflation. So there's a lot of pieces to the puzzle. And I think you bring up a great point. Like it's all about the user experience too. There are people, we're trying to help a transaction right now with a good buddy and colleague, and he owns 18 homes in and around University of Denver. And he's a really smart, savvy guy, and he's trying to figure out what he wants to do in the homes. He bought it from a guy who is truly the classic slumlord, meaning that the guy had bought 1 or 2 homes every year for the past 20 years.
Yeah.
I'm sure his basis was like $150,000. So even his total crap holes, they're worth $500. And if they're fixed up, they're worth $800 all day. But the guy before my buddy, was not fixing anything. It's not safe. It's, to your point, hitting the $250 increase because market rate went way up or whatever. So yeah, there's some give and take, I think, to mom and pop crappy landlords, just trying to do the right thing and take care of people or, liability.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, in the individual situation, reach out to a landlord about brick spalding that I was concerned about. No response. Get sent a paper that says they have no obligation to inspect it.
Yep.
And that's that. Versus when you have, larger organizations, processes, procedures, relevant, timely responses, service level agreements to respond to, maintenance requests within 24 hours. Like operationally, I think they're just more ready to handle rental requests.
They have all these procedures in place to keep them in check.
Right. And I think that in my point of view on this, like, I don't think I'm jumping out of my seat to buy a house because the experience of renting is quite effective.
Yeah.
Your mobility, you don't have the maintenance overhead or the tax obligations, although much of that is passed on to the renter, right, in the form of your rent. But in terms of like short-term outlook versus long-term outlook, I think there's always going to be such like a hyper-personal opinion about home ownership, what my goals are for my wealth. If I put it in Bitcoin, am I going to get a greater return than in property, right?
Sure.
Right? Like these are all individual calculus, that we each run.
What a scenario that you put yourself in there.
Yeah.
They're going to Bitcoin or buy a house.
Right, and that's the extreme. I mean, Bitcoin's outperforming the S&P. It's outperforming the real estate market.
Yeah.
I mean, over the past 10 years, it's crazy. And so when we think about these like super cycles that happen, housing crash, now we're on a long tail again, higher interest rates, like there's really no telling where it's going to go. Like, I don't want to venture into the land of trying to like future cast.
Yeah.
But I do want to come back to when you have these layers of asset management, you've got people focused on acquisitions, managing that portfolio. What are you hearing from those folks about their horizons of AI? Do you have any insight into how they're employing it today? What are they doing with their models or even just operationally with it?
Yeah, that's a good question. I wish I had better answers, but maybe what would be helpful for your audience is we're still seeing a lot of intermediaries that are running things from, let's say, the top level of the actual money and the capital and the ownership. But for them to operate these things at scale, they're working with intermediaries, meaning they're companies that are doing the analysis and the underwriting. They're doing potentially the property management. They are doing the asset management. So there's people that want to stay with just truly like, the BlackRocks of the world that probably want to just really manage their money and find and earn yield versus the other folks out there that are kind of the middle people, if you will. So I think it's weird. They are then keeping all that information close to the vest. I think the funds and the institutions that are doing the best are then tapping into local partners like us who have the boots on the ground, who have the experience, who can tell you, hey, apples to apples and side by side, these two homes, you don't want to buy this one because it backs to a major road and it's actually near a school, but it's super insane during pickup and drop off.
Backs up.
It's terrible. It's not like, oh, Johnny and Janie can walk to school. It's like, no, for a single person, because it's a 2-bedroom house that probably don't have kids, they don't want to live there anyway. So it's like, I think those are the ones that are succeeding, but I wish that they would give us the secret sauce to a degree, but we're kind of kept weirdly in the dark. So we're trying to say, how can our little boutique company be the ones to help integrate AI or create systems to make the intermediary's life easy, and then we win the business. So I wish I had a better answer of like, they're using this software or that tool, but they like keep it super close to the vest.
I mean, that's a good,
I mean, it's our bajillion-dollar idea of come up with that solution. They have to be doing it, but sometimes they're not doing it very.
That's a major blocker to integrate AI is if they're keeping data close to the vest, AI needs data to be able to be integrated.
Sure.
Absolutely.
But I think it speaks more to like a closed data environment we head towards with AI. Like data used to be like people were really pushing for APIs, opening things up, and like allowing people to have access to this type of data to come up with new things. And now with AI, I feel like we're headed towards like a winter where everyone's going to start locking up data.
I could see that.
Yeah, that
it's going
should be
the thing that differentiates you.
And the service offering, to Derek's point of all these third parties, you might get access to that data because you provide a premier service. You're getting great returns. And then it's kind of like okay, here's the next level.
Like,
Yeah.
probably provide a service to you with the data, but yeah.
Right.
It's your data, but yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. So I'm curious with what you guys are focused on at Elevation, how are you seeing AI come into your work then? Like, what are you most interested in this year, right? It's mid-February. We've talked a lot about AI is permeating everything from operations, the marketing aspect, the getting your name out there, cutting podcasts. Where are you with it on your roadmap?
Yeah, that's a good question. I try to kind of put it in three different buckets. I think the first one, and to me, we always have the philosophy, and that's lead with revenue. So if we can obviously make money,
That's a damn good philosophy.
I thank you. Not really earth shattering there, but it's like we can have all these fun bells and whistles, but if we can't afford them, it really doesn't matter to me. So it's like, let's lead with revenue. So to me, it's big picture analysis of data so we can make good investment decisions. And it's being able to help do lead gen. So if we can find good deals, we can analyze them and make sure they're good opportunities. That's like the pinnacle for us. But not really far down the list is content creation. I feel like to your point earlier, like there's real estate agents and there's some agencies out there that do a good job of helping speed up. I shouldn't call it generic, but like it's called traditional real estate content. From my seat as an investor, and actually dude who doesn't have his license, even though we have 8 people who are licensed that work with us, it's about really creating unique and cool content at scale without paying an arm and a leg, and making it great. So that's something we're really working on and trying to figure out. And then the third leg, I would say, is just more in general operational efficiencies.
Yeah.
And so I'll give you kind of a perfect example is we run our flips through software called Monday.com. People have probably totally heard of it. We've taken that and we've customized it to the way that we want to run a flip. So we now have like 112 steps of every single thing we do to run the flip. I would love to see how we could have AI maybe parse through that data and find ways that we're either spending too much on electrical or this is taking more time. We're like diving in and dicing that up.
Yeah.
I think that would be interesting. And then our project manager, Travis, he is implementing a new piece of software that uses great AI called Company Cam. And the cool thing about that is our process used to be meet there weekly.
Mm-hmm.
He'd be at a flip probably twice a week. I'd be there once a week, just double checking things. And he would take physical notes.
Okay.
He would type those notes. He would send them to the contractor. Sometimes that contractor may or may not look at them.
Yeah.
So now what he does is with Company Cam, he just does tours on his phone.
Yeah.
He obviously gets all the video. His audio is then transcribed to a summary that it now knows kind of our deal points.
Yeah.
And then he can jump back in and he can do graphic edits and send this like beautiful report to the contractor. So like if there's ever a screw up, it now puts it, I'd say it used to be 60% we were right, 40% contractors right. Now we're like 90% right because we've documented everything. And if they screw up, it's on them. And that's real money to us. So like using things like Company Cam has been a game changer for us. We've only doing it for like 3 months, but like that. Then to compared to your guys' world, that's probably super low level, but like it's like game changer for us.
Yeah,
I was thinking of like a creative idea. Like I like to watch these like Sotheby's like tours through Utah mansions and stuff. Mm-hmm. And like you could use Sora to like just create a similar like tour throughout the place and use AI to like create like a realtor like video.
Mm-hmm.
I find Company Cam to be like wildly more interesting than it seems. Like
really,
me too. Yeah,
so I think my biggest. So I think that like I think this is a Mark Zuckerberg quote, not a recent.
Yeah,
he's on a different channel.
So it's a good one and not.
But like
old chain.
I want to say like 2011 or something. He said like you'd be shocked at when you start a company how much progress you make by doing like the little things, like whatever the little thing is. Yeah. Like just do that, and then if you put like the big thing will come.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it's like. That's something that like it literally is doing that guy's job in helping him do it, and only he knows if it did a good job.
Right.
You know, right? It's like a very valuable feedback mechanism, and it's not hard to build. It's not crazy. It's just like a good use of AI.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
and I feel like if you do that times 1,000, you build a whole company.
Yeah, that's cool.
You just got to find those use cases.
Yeah. And at the risk of sounding repetitive to what we talked about last week, I'm very keen this year on these sort of micro, small applications that happen at the edge.
Oh,
so we think about that small app that records video and audio and creates a transcription and then formats it as a report is actually relatively simple implementation of normal open source technology that exists, relatively cheap to make.
Yeah.
But to, produce it, distribute it, support it, right? That's all the really hard work, I would say. And so in that case, like what Keith's bringing up, where it's doing that guy's job very well and very focused, I think we're going to see a plethora of those that actually you'll be in control of, right? And that if you say, hey, we find ourselves doing this consistently, I don't know if the answer is always going to be a vendor. And my hypothesis as we approach the end of the year is that these tools will get better and better, where Derek can say, we always have to take these notes at this certain point. I'm just going to spin up something that costs us pennies to run and is cloud-based and available that solves that for us, rather than going to some SaaS subscription at $50.
Oh, that's like a huge bigger trend that I think SaaS is like. I don't want to like sit here and say SaaS is gone because like they won't lose the big contracts with like the huge enterprises, but like to me it's like the cost of building software has gone like down to build just software that fits like a very niche use case. And like you said, it's like making sure that you can deploy that and manage it across many different things. But any one use case can be solved very easily with AI in a way that's like magical. Compared to 3 years ago.
Yeah, what would have taken $50,000 and 2 engineers.
Such cases.
Yeah.
The computer did not reason. That's insane. They just accepted that that's like a thing it could do. It's like, oh, I've never thought on that.
Yeah.
That's insane.
That is insane. That is.
So this kind of gets to a topic that I wanted to follow up on. You mentioned this book by Dan Martell earlier, Buying Back Your Time.
Yeah.
And I think these micro applications or these small point solutions are actually one of the ways that you're going to buy back that time. So can you just explain to people the 10-80-10?
Sure.
And that kind of question you posed of, what part of that 10-80-10 breakdown is AI?
Yeah. So it's a concept by, to your point, a guy named Dan Martell. He wrote this book called Buy Back Your Time. And his philosophy in this one, it's something we really try to use as like nuts and bolts way to run our business, is 10% should be driven by the leader. Whether it's implementing the vision, giving good instructions, good direction of whatever the project is, could be super big picture stuff, could be very kind of minor detail. Yeah. The 80% are doing, as we call it, the quote unquote thing, should be done, I think, in the past by a person or an employee, or maybe kind of moving up the scale, a VA. Well, now to me, and what something we're trying to push to our team is AI should either do the thing or sure as hell better make you way better at doing the thing.
Yeah.
So AI should be the 80%. And then the 10% should be the leader or the manager coming back in, double checking it, just making sure everything is on brand, making sure it's within your values. It's the right, user case or whatever. So to me, that is going to be instrumental in doing big picture things, super simple things, but that 10-80-10, how can we make AI integrate in the middle of that? And a simple application for us is when we list a property on the market to sell, when we're done flipping it, there is a, description of the property. And as much as real estate agents, try to make it sound beautiful and that everything has an open floor plan and, sip your morning coffee or whatever bullshit phrase you want to hear or use, I think it's a waste of time too. So we tell our people, here's the couple of inputs to make sure it's the right style or the right beds and baths or whatever, but have AI generate the description every single time. But take that 10% to check it, because if it's spelled wrong or it's like, there's something jacked up, then I don't like that either. So that's the super low level 10-80-10 that we're trying to have people help do.
So something interesting about this is that when Airbnb first entered the market, did analysis on descriptions that people wrote advertising their short-term rentals. And what Airbnb found through studying their platform, and gosh, this would have been 2013, 2014.
Right.
What they found is that there's a Goldilocks zone of those descriptions, right? And this is just using NLP and, some of the early processing tools on that. Not even LLMs involved.
Yeah.
And what they found is that there is a very explicit fall off point where if the description is too long, people will not book it. If the description is too short, people will not book it. If it has certain content in it. And that's how they provide now helpful tips to hosts, how to describe your property, what the recommended character count is.
That's like the same story where like they, when they started, they realized how important pictures were. So they just told everyone, we will literally just come and take your pictures. And they said, professional photographer.
Exactly. And so in that case, my follow-up question on the 10-80-10. You're positioning AI in the 80.
Okay.
Now, I just want to throw out a hypothesis provocation and see what you guys think is, why not have the AI do the first 10 so that you know what to go spend 80% of your time on? Yeah. Or conversely, why not use AI at the latter 10 to ensure accuracy, correctness, relevancy, like in the Airbnb kind of case? So
yeah.
Could you see AI sitting as the leader,
yep.
helping express what to go do and focus on? Could AI play in those other 10?
To do the whole thing.
Or you get to focus on the 80% to use your time the way that you want to. The majority of your time is spent on things that you want to focus on. Yeah. I'm just curious,
I'll start. I would like to see it 5 and 5 work together with the AI for the 10 and then go let it run and do its own thing.
Let it do the 80 and 90. Yeah, that makes sense. What do you think, Keith? Could the AI be the other 10% in this kind of breakdown? Because we talk about the messy middle all the time.
So I don't think that it necessarily has to replace the 80%. I think that there's actually two ways of thinking about it, right? So I think that you see actually the separation in the way OpenAI is trying to do the models, right? OpenAI has this new reasoning model. That's they keep advertising it as a PhD level thing, as if most people in the world work with PhDs.
Yeah.
So, it's oh, thank God I have a PhD in the office stack.
For what?
Did you see the slide where a kid had consulted 13 doctors that couldn't fix his issues and OpenAI did it for him? Yeah.
Anyway, those models are better at more problem solving and making connections across many domains in a way that could be, I think, helpful in a leadership level. I think that there's a very obvious responsibility part of being a leader that they never take. There's going to be a person that's responsible for what that AI said.
Accountable.
Right. Saying, I listened to it. I chose to do what it said.
Yeah.
And then I think that the 80% is actually a different thing. That's where you see the lower cost models, you see this race towards zero on this lower level of intelligence that is not stupid.
Yeah.
It's capable of doing a lot of the tasks that over time, since computers have become popular, people have just been, there are so many people in the world that are just moving around Excel spreadsheets.
Yeah.
Or just create PDFs and Word docs and stuff. Not, and they're the stuff they do is valuable. It's just the time they spend is not necessarily the best way that they could have spent that time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's almost two separate problems to where together it kind of forms one organization where the leader is this reasoning model and it's doing different things.
Yeah.
And then the 80% is what's actually done. And that's done with different models,
mm-hmm.
much lower cost, and you can do 100,000 things versus 10 things for the same cost.
Yeah,
that's not right. It's 10 to 1,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
So maybe to Dan Martell's point and buy back your time, I think the ways that people will claw back time is going to, again, be very individualized. You might employ it to automate, 79% of that messy middle. So you only have to be involved in 1% of it and you can go spend your time on something else. Or you may be really invested in that 80% time. In the case of an artist, maybe they want to toil on their work and then use it for planning and distribution and marketing.
Right. I think a good example is in coding, a way you could have AI write code is that you'd have one of these reasoning models, look at all your code, runs searches over it and find the relevant files. And then it comes up with a plan, it structures what it wants to do, etc. And then you execute that plan. A better way to do it is to run the cheaper models that know how to write the code.
Yeah.
Right. But they don't, they're not as good at figuring out everything it needs to do.
Mm.
And so you run that on 10 times for each step, right? Edit the files and then the whole process is done. Right. And so in that case, you have the reasoning model do the work of a product manager. And then you had the AI models do the work of the hands on the keyboard devs.
Right. It's that multiplier effect where you're actually going to have multiple dimensions or realities of your 80%, where if you use your 10% well in the planning and sort of, strategic, let's say reasoning, I might be able to then employ 10 different AIs doing 10 different 80% to all come back together in the last step, right? And to bring all that knowledge into a workflow, a process, an output of some sort. You kind of get in this, it's there's not a single thread anymore, right? Because we've got agentic systems that can actually do many different 80% better than you just subdividing your 80% into separate.
Right? And I think it kind of depends on the business too. I mean, there's a lot of businesses where like, I mean, that's what the word hustle means in my mind. It's like this guy just did it.
You're at 160.
He needed this spreadsheet done. He did it. He did this done. He did it. And I'm like, I feel like AI could do a lot of that stuff, but you're still going to need someone to direct it and push that through. But like, I don't know, like the 80% just looks different in every type of business. I think that's the biggest question, because the 80% could be expertise, like in a lot of different things. It could be someone that is a decision maker that needs to look at this deal before it goes through. Could be the block.
And it's crazy that, you know, these GPTs, I often think of them as new general purpose technologies. They're not just generative pre-trained transformers. They're like a new form of calculators, a new way of communicating, like the telegraph to the phone. We now have something that actually can broadly apply to any 80% that you task.
No, that's why I consider it more to like the invention of electricity, where like they invented electricity, the ability to generate power, and they're like, "Fuck, do we plug in?"
Yeah, we don't have toasters yet.
Shit. Yeah. And sometimes like, we had an idea for a blender.
Yeah.
You know, like there's always like all the things we have now were thought of because they didn't have power. Like they were just doing things way differently for everything.
Yep.
And so I think that like that, like the kind of drop that you see of like, I don't know if you guys are aware of like the amount of time that people spend doing housework before like electricity, but it was like insane.
Washing clothes.
It was like 100% of every woman's time back. It's crazy. Yeah. And it was like they had to, everything was washed by hand. There were like refrigerators or anything like that. Like,
is this a plug for, was it Grandma Schulteis?
No, that's a totally different thing. But no, that's like the point though, right? It's like, it's actually very similar to AI, where it's like, but now it's replacing like white collar work instead of blue collar work.
True.
Because you can say the same for factories that I just said about housework as well.
Yep.
Because it touches every part of society, where it's like all of a sudden we have this thing and we don't know how it's going to work like necessarily, but we know that it could do pretty much everything that most white collar workers do. Yeah. That are like at a certain level of expertise.
Yeah. Like almost all job functions are 100% exposed.
Yeah. That doesn't mean that it does a good job by default, no, but neither do people.
Yeah.
No,
like,
true.
That would be awesome. Well,
yeah.
Just because you have 5 PhDs, I mean, the amount of companies that have said, like, I have 100 PhDs that fail is insane.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
So we're kind of approaching the end of our time together, actually. So just being mindful of Derek's time, I'd like to end on some of the emerging topics that are on your radar. What do people need to be looking at with respect to real estate, artificial intelligence? And let's leave folks with some thinking around, where does the space go? How are we going to start seeing AI permeating into it?
Yeah, I think that I shouldn't say simple, maybe the low-hanging fruit is running comps. That comparison of what are all these things selling for? What are the attributes, and how can I help determine what my property can or should sell for? I think aggregating that data, because there's a lot of human error there. I mean, we train real estate time. We try to show them our system. We try to justify why we're saying this 3-bed, 2-bath fixed up in this manner should sell for this. But there's all these different things that people get emotionally attached because they say, well, this is across the street from a nice park, or this one is by a busy road or whatever. So I think AI can almost take the emotion out of it and just really try to hammer in on facts and data. So I think that's something that we're trying to figure out, we're using, and it should be coming in the near future. Definitely the property management experience. You know, Eli, you eloquently, kind of outlined how that's really improving through technology and through AI versus the old school person that is trying to run their own rentals, or even a person who's overworked and trying to keep more money at their bottom line. There's kind of a simple philosophy that one person shouldn't manage no more than 100 doors, or things just kind of go to hell in a handbasket. So I think that has to operationally is a game changer. And something I was trying to do some research for this, and I always like try to put on, I'm in a weird generational thing too. I'll I'm sure your audience already can tell, like I'm the old dude in the room. But
barely, but Chris is here.
But like being that person who's in like that transitionary, Gen X phase of trying to adopt these technologies, having teenagers who are hyper adopting these technologies, bridging the gap with my folks who are in their 70s. I honestly think about it because we work a lot. It's called the older adult, but it's the senior citizen space. There's retirement communities that are out there that are so ingrained in like one-on-one communication, one-on-one level of care. They're so damn expensive. So how could AI actually get involved through technology in the older adult space is something that I'm trying to think of. And I'm also trying to think of areas that haven't been tapped, if you will. But I think that again, to improve level of care, to improve efficiency of, showing that grandma and grandpa could move into this facility that needs this care, this price point, this location. Like, I think that's an interesting, I don't know, thesis to explore, is the older adult space. I don't see people using it much. There are institutions that own, lots of senior communities around, but there's also people that own them individually. So I think that one would be really interesting to explore, because I don't see anything out there. And it seems way counterintuitive, but it's something that just was like my little thing. I was like, wait a minute, this is a thing.
What's funny about this is one of our engineers, Bobby, the other, this was, I think 3-4 weeks ago, Bobby came to me and said, I had an idea. And, showed me this small application that simulates a video feed. And he's like, it's a patient monitoring system where somebody moves and AI can recognize that through the feed, alert a nurse that somebody needs help, etc. Like, I think when you apply it to these, like, what are really emotional spaces, right? Determining where your grandmother is going to live and how to take care of them, what type or quality of care they'll receive is actually oftentimes, and this goes back to the architecture stuff from health and wellness, where the amount of daylight and the least amount of walking for nurses or like attendants is directly deterministic of the quality of care that somebody gets.
Ooh, interesting.
Daylight and how much nurses walk. It's 1-to-1. So now that in building codes, they're actually requiring those percentages, and they're capping them on collectively bargained agreements for the nurses so that they don't have to go and traverse long distances to go take care of people.
Yeah.
That's a place that AI could be super helpful in saying, hey, these walk distances and these layouts are not conducive for high quality care.
Right.
Let's just strike it off the list, right? Those are the types.
Right.
And it's a really it's a really good observation. I think the health, senior care, memory care facilities, it makes a lot of sense.
My head went to a weirder place, which is that, like, at a previous job, I did some biz dev on like nursing homes and helping them like work with banks specifically. And nursing homes have like wildly complex, back office like situations, because like they literally get paid from like half this guy's thing comes from Medicare, and Medicare gets deposited directly to the bank, which is a huge boon.
Yep.
Because like, government's just gonna put money in this account each month. Hell yeah. And then it's gonna get transferred to the company that is also at our bank. I think that's awesome. And so like that kind of thing. I feel like there's just a lot of paperwork and stuff there. I mean, it's like this all throughout healthcare, where it's like there's so much things where like people are not doing what they are wanting to do.
Yeah.
Like nurses are doing a lot of paperwork. They're doing a lot of like stuff they don't want to do. And they can't just do the thing they think we're trained to do.
Yeah.
Just care about people and help people.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that opportunity is even bigger. Like, there's so much stuff in nursing homes, particularly if people haven't.
And with the demographic cliff we're facing, where it's only a growing problem for the next 35 years while birth rates are still declining. Like it's a huge demographic cliff in real estate, the education market, higher ed. Like, it's gonna be a lot of empty seats in schools coming soon,
right?
And eventually empty seats in nursing homes as well.
Yeah. No, that's really well said. I mean, they call it the silver tsunami, which is just this huge generational transfer from a physical standpoint and from a wealth standpoint too. And so it's like, how can we use that to provide the best level of care at the right price at a streamlined system? Because, I don't know the right data on this, but it's probably not this massive influx of nurses that are wanting to work in these facilities. Yeah. So we got to be more efficient with what we're doing to keep that care up. So it's like, there's got to be a way to integrate that into the older adult senior community. Yeah,
that's super interesting. I know we latched onto that one. Is there anything else that you see as like a trend or emerging besides what you shared so far?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hopefully try to end it with like maybe the individual investor or real estate agent application and maybe the hedge fund application. I think it's from an institutional level, the hedge fund is trying to marry being able to aggregate all that data, but then use that data to make good decisions to help your boots on the ground person run your business as effectively as possible. Because we talked about the Zillow open door thing while people got burned. Yeah. There's a way to operate at scale without completely cutting out the boots on the ground person, but you don't need 20 of those people. So it's that middle integration in technology. I think that's going to be super important. Again, everybody keeps holding it close to the vest. Maybe that's why they're good at what they do and they land these big contracts of being these intermediaries, but how can we bring that down to people like us, like mom and pop type of investors? And then from an individual person's perspective, something that I kind of jotted down as a note is when we went through COVID, there was a good 2-month period where obviously people lost their minds. We were all freaked out. Nobody knew what was going on. And I, at that point, owned 3 properties I was flipping. One of them was supposed to be permitted by the city and county of Denver, and they wouldn't send anybody out to do inspections. So like, am I going to just sit there and wait for either 1 month or 1 year for the city to open back up? Like, I have carrying cost. I couldn't do it. So we just did permit quality work and finished it. And then there was a 2-month moratorium on actually doing showings. And so to me, it's that technology. I'm like, how the hell can I sell a house when there's no showings? Like, yeah, there's some ultra wealthy people that'll buy a house sight unseen, but how do we really dive into, which is funny, we've had it around for a long time, but like really good virtual tours, better virtual staging. I was going to go, again, dating myself, like Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous, Robin Leach, like taking people on a tour of my house and like really showing them the craftsmanship, the quality, doing video, like going the next level. How could technology and AI like really integrate from a retail perspective? If another pandemic comes, or again, to your point, you like the experience of not having to deal with property manager that you're waiting to be late because he's getting a Starbucks or whatever. Could we do it, and sell houses that way? Yeah, I think that's totally on the forefront, even though we've had a lot of these pieces of puzzle for 8 to 10 years anyways, but we like kind of coasted on that technology. We need to like re-energize that versus here's a regular 3D tour. Like, that's not that sexy or that. We got to go next level.
Super interesting. Well, thank you so much for sharing your insights on the space. Thank you for being a great building manager. Shout out to Anne, your partner, and everything she does for the space. It's been a pleasure being here for 8-9 months now. So thank you for joining us on the podcast, sharing your insights about elevation, raising the Flipping Bar podcast. We'll make sure to include that stuff in the show notes. This has really been fantastic. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys. It's been super fun.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome. Stop.